The air stands still, heavy with the taste of rain that never falls. You are standing at the edge of an abyss so vast it seems to swallow the horizon itself. The earth beneath your feet feels uncertain, almost brittle, as though one more breath could send it crumbling into the chasm below. The world you knew is already fading, its familiar light pulled into a silent void ahead. Shadows rise like tides, drowning the last remnants of what was once certain. It would be easy to believe you are alone here, but beneath the pounding of your heart, beneath the weight of your doubts, there is a quiet murmur, faint, almost fragile. This is not your ending. This is where you begin. You take a step, and then another. Each movement is an act of defiance against the darkness pressing close. Your chest is heavy with questions, your mind a storm of unformed fears. The map of your life, every landmark you thought you could trust, has been torn apart, its fragments scattered by unseen winds. Even the silence here has a gravity to it, drawing you inward, deeper. Yet somewhere in the marrow of your being, a strange truth glimmers. The deepest night exists not to consume you, but to forge you. You sense it the way the ocean senses the moon, wordless, inevitable. Like a creature sealed within its cocoon, you feel the enclosing walls of the familiar. The shell is safe, but it is also a tomb. To remain is to wither. To surrender is to be remade. The fibers of your old self, fear, doubt, the ache of wounds you've carried too long, begin to unravel, thread by thread. It is not destruction. It is the slow birth of something that cannot yet be named. In the stillness, a quiet certainty stirs. This darkness is not a predator. It is a midwife. Your soul has always known this journey, though your mind resists it. The night offers no signposts, no guarantees. Yet the path is already being woven under your feet as you walk. Each uncertain step carries you closer to an awakening that has been calling to you since before you could speak its name. The dark does not diminish your light. It reveals the light that was hidden within you all along. Here, in this uncharted space, you begin to sense your own power, not as something to be seized, but as something that has always been yours. You move forward, not to escape the night, but to be transformed by it. The air hums with unseen currents, and though you cannot see the dawn, you can feel it gathering beyond the horizon. The unknown ceases to be a threat and begins to feel like an invitation. There is a promise here, wrapped in shadow, that when you emerge, you will carry the night within you, not as a weight, but as a crown. So you loosen your grip on what was. You step into the unlit expanse, guided by the whisper that has never abandoned you. The ground beneath you feels less fragile now, as though it recognizes your choice. The abyss does not vanish. It remains vast and unending. But something in you has shifted. You understand now. The journey is not to cross it, but to become the bridge. And in that realization, the silence changes. No longer empty, but alive with the first tremors of the dawn to come. The night deepens around you, not as an enemy, but as a vast cathedral of shadows. Its walls are invisible, its ceiling endless, and yet it holds you in a strange, reverent stillness. The air carries no wind, no rustle of leaves, only a hush so complete it feels as though the world has stopped breathing. In that stillness, something stirs. It is not the thunderous voice of revelation you might expect, but a sound so fragile it could be mistaken for memory. A whisper, threaded through the marrow of your bones. At first, it is faint, like a distant echo carried over black water. But the more you listen, the more it begins to take shape, as if it has been waiting for your silence to open. This is not the noise of the world, with its endless demands and opinions. This is the voice that has always walked beside you, quiet and patient, never shouting over the chaos, never competing for attention. It speaks not of what you should become, but of what you already are. And in its tone, there is no urgency, only the steady rhythm of truth. You realize how long it has been since you last heard it. The world had been loud, too loud. Its currents pulled you outward, scattering your attention into 1,000 fragments. Approval, validation, the fleeting comfort of being accepted. You chased them all, as if they could fill the hollow you carried inside. But now, stripped of those distractions, you see that the hollow was not emptiness. It was space. Space where this voice could live, could rise again. It speaks of the self that existed before the layers, before the names, before the stories others told you about yourself. It reminds you that the soul does not need to be constructed. It has always been whole. The truth in its words is not something to be achieved, but something to be remembered. And in that remembrance, the ache in your chest begins to loosen. There is love in this voice, not the brittle love that must be earned, nor the fragile kind that can be withdrawn, but a love older than the stars. It does not condemn. It does not measure your worth against the weight of your mistakes. It simply sees you, fully, without disguise, and calls you home. It asks nothing except that you trust it, even when the path ahead is hidden. Especially then, the darkness around you has not changed, but your perception of it has. Where before it was an expanse to be feared, now it feels like an ocean into which you might dissolve without drowning. There is safety here, not in the absence of danger, but in the presence of something greater than fear. As you breathe, the whisper grows warmer, stronger, until it is no longer just a sound, but a pulse moving through your entire being. You understand now that the voice is not separate from you. It is you. It has no need to argue with the world's noise because it speaks from a place the world cannot touch. It tells you the one truth that dismantles all the others. You are already enough. And in that moment, the darkness feels less like a trial and more like an initiation. It begins not with thunder, but with a breath, your own, slow and deliberate. The whisper has settled into you now, no longer drifting on the air, but rooted in your chest like an ancient tree. From its roots, a memory begins to rise, not of a moment or a place, but of a knowing that was once as natural as breathing. You have always been worthy. It comes as light, subtle at first, a warm glow seeping through the cracks in your doubt. It does not arrive from somewhere else. It unfolds from within, as though it has been patiently waiting for you to remember. You see now how many years you spent searching outward, collecting the fragile currencies of approval and praise. You carried them like charms, believing they could protect you from the question you feared to ask. Am I enough? But the question was never for the world to answer. The light within you swells, gold and steady, filling your ribcage until your breath feels infinite. It does not burn, it does not blind. It simply exists, unapologetic in its radiance. And as it spreads, the old narratives, the ones that told you to prove, to compete, to earn, begin to dissolve like ash in water. You remember now? You were born with this worth. It was sewn into the fabric of your soul before your first breath. No failure could strip it away. No judgment could tarnish it. It has never been at risk. The world may have told you otherwise. It may have made you feel small, may have taught you to measure yourself in shallow ways. But the truth was untouched, waiting beneath the noise, pulsing like a heartbeat you had forgotten to feel. You let the light move outward, beyond your chest, into your arms, your hands, your fingertips. It coats you like sunlight on skin after a long winter. You see the illusion for what it was, that your worth was conditional, that it could be given or taken. Those were only shadows cast by the fears of others, fears that no longer belong to you. In this remembrance, there is no striving. You do not need to reach higher to deserve the air you breathe. You do not need to become more to stand in the light. You are already the light. This is not arrogance. It is truth. It is the quiet recognition of what has always been yours. The darkness around you remains, but it can no longer press in the way it once did. It bends around the glow you carry, unable to diminish it. You understand now that you will move through life not in search of validation, but radiating from the foundation of your own being. You will give, not to prove your value, but because your value overflows. The whisper in your chest softens, as if it has said all it needed to say for now. And yet, its presence remains, a steady ember you can return to at any moment. You know this. The remembrance cannot be lost again. Once the truth is seen, it cannot be unseen. The glow within you does not fade. Instead, it begins to shift, to move, not like a flame flickering, but like a tide advancing with quiet purpose. It gathers in the center of your chest, a warm, pulsing light that feels older than your body. Its heat is not the kind that burns, but the kind that mends, weaving together the frayed threads of your being. Healing is not the sudden miracle you once imagined. It is not a destination to be reached, a single moment when all wounds vanish. It is a slow reclamation, a remembering of wholeness. Every thought, every memory, every scar on your skin and in your soul hums with energy, and when that energy is allowed to flow freely, the body and spirit find their own way back to balance. You close your eyes and let the light move. It pours outward from your heart, filling the hollow spaces in your ribs, winding down your spine, spilling into your arms and legs. You can feel it sinking deeper, into muscles that have held tension for years, into bones that have carried burdens too long, into cells that have memorized old pain. As it moves, it does not force anything away. It simply dissolves what no longer belongs. The warmth is not only within, it surrounds you, as if the very air has been infused with compassion. You begin to understand. This light is not separate from the world, and the world is not separate from you. The same energy that shapes the rivers and the stars is the energy that now floods your veins. It does not judge your wounds or ask why you carry them. It simply meets them where they are and holds them until they soften. You breathe deeper, and with each breath, the heaviness inside you loosens. Thoughts you have clung to, regrets, self-criticism, quiet grief, rise to the surface like silt in clear water. And then, with the gentlest exhale, they disperse, vanishing into the space around you. Nothing is forced. Nothing is rushed. Healing moves at the pace of trust. In this light, you begin to see your body differently, not as a machine to be fixed, but as a sacred vessel, listening to every thought you think, every word you speak to yourself. You realize it has always been trying to protect you, even when it felt like it was failing. It has carried you through storms you never thought you could survive. It deserves your kindness now. The darkness that once pressed so tightly against you now feels like a soft backdrop, a canvas on which this light can grow ever brighter. You know that the process is not finished, that healing is not a single moment, but a lifelong unfolding. But you also know that the current has shifted. The tide has turned in your favor, and so you rest in this warmth, this stillness, trusting that even without seeing the full horizon, you are already moving toward it. In this trust, there is peace, and in this peace, the light within you burns steadier, ready for what comes next. The warmth within you does not simply heal, it begins to transform. What was once still and tender now feels alive, restless in the most sacred way, as though it longs to move beyond restoration into creation. And with that stirring comes the awareness of another presence within you. Fear, not the paralyzing shadow that once dictated your steps, but the raw, unshaped energy of it. You see it clearly now, no longer hiding in the corners. It is not a monster with teeth. It is a lump of ore, dark and heavy, yet glinting faintly with a hidden light. Fear has never truly been your enemy. It was only a messenger, calling your attention to the edge of your own growth. You reach for it, not to banish it, but to understand it, as your hands, metaphorical yet utterly real, close around the weight of it. You feel its pulse. It beats in time with your own heart, and in this recognition, the alchemy begins. You breathe, and the breath becomes a forge. With each inhale, you draw the fear closer. With each exhale, you let it melt into the glow at your center. The edges soften. The darkness lightens. In the crucible of your chest, fear shifts shape. It does not vanish. It transforms. The sharpness turns into clarity. The heaviness becomes gravity, pulling you toward your true direction instead of anchoring you in place. What was once resistance is now fuel, and you feel it feeding the fire of your purpose. Pain, too, rises to the surface. Old wounds, recent aches, quiet disappointments. They appear not as punishments, but as uncut gems, each carrying a lesson, each asking to be polished into wisdom. You hold them, one by one, in the light of your awareness, and their jagged edges begin to smooth. The more you allow them to be seen, the more they reveal their hidden beauty. Every trial you have endured becomes a thread of gold, woven into the tapestry of your soul. And then there is the darkness itself, the vast, formless expanse that once seemed to threaten your very existence. You realize now that darkness is only the absence of light, and that your light has never been dependent on the sun or the stars. You carry it within you, eternal and unshaken. With this knowing, you do not push the darkness away. You step into it, allowing your light to spill into every hidden corner. The alchemist does not fight the elements. They work with them, transmuting what is base into what is precious. And now you see that you, too, are an alchemist. You can take the energies of fear, pain, and shadow and transform them into love, purpose, and radiance. This is not a single moment of magic. It is a practice, a way of living. As the transformation completes, you feel lighter, yet more grounded. The world has not changed, but your relationship to it has. Fear no longer dictates your steps. Pain no longer defines your story. Darkness no longer obscures your path. You carry them all, yes, but they have been rewritten, reshaped into the architecture of your becoming. And as you stand in this new light, you know, whatever comes next, you will not meet it as the one who first stepped into the abyss. You will meet it as the one who learned to turn shadows into gold. The air feels different now, not lighter or heavier, but fuller, charged with a quiet electricity, as if the very space around you is aware of your transformation. And with this new awareness comes a deeper seeing. You begin to notice threads, fine, almost invisible, that weave through every moment of your life. They connect the joys and the sorrows, the victories and the losses, the beginnings and the endings. What once seemed like a scattered collection of events now reveals itself as a deliberate pattern. Life was never a series of accidents. It has always been a curriculum, each chapter a lesson, each lesson a teacher. The people you have met, whether they stayed for years or passed through in an instant, were not random arrivals. They were mirrors, showing you the pieces of yourself you had forgotten or refused to see. Some brought tenderness, others brought pain, yet all carried the same hidden purpose: to awaken you. Even the sharpest wounds begin to look different under this light. Betrayals become invitations to trust yourself more deeply. Loss becomes a doorway to love that is not bound by possession. Confusion becomes the soil in which clarity grows. You see now that the soul is not fragile. It is endlessly adaptive, bending and reshaping itself to extract wisdom from whatever it touches. The lessons were not always gentle. Some came like storms, tearing away what you thought you needed. Others arrived as quiet, persistent whispers, guiding you toward choices you didn't yet understand. But each one, no matter how it appeared, was part of a larger agreement, a contract your soul made before stepping into this life. These agreements were never punishments. They were opportunities to remember who you are beneath the noise of circumstance, and perhaps, in some unspoken way, you always knew. The moments that shattered you also expanded you. The nights you thought would never end were the same nights in which your inner fire learned to burn without fuel. You carry the evidence in your being, the resilience in your bones, the depth in your gaze, the quiet certainty that there is meaning even in the moments that seem meaningless. As you stand here, seeing the weave of it all, gratitude begins to rise, not as a forced act of optimism, but as a genuine recognition. You have been shaped, yes, but never broken. Each thread, even the dark ones, belongs to the same tapestry. And that tapestry is not finished. It is still unfolding, still growing more intricate with each breath you take. You realize now that you are not merely walking through your life. You are in dialogue with it. Every choice you make shapes the next lesson. Every step you take writes the next line in a script you are both reading and creating. This is your soul's education, and you are both student and author. The darkness at the edge of your vision feels less like a void and more like uncharted territory, waiting for your steps to give it shape. And with this understanding, you feel ready, not for the absence of challenge, but for the clarity that every challenge brings. You know now that there is no wasted experience. All of it is part of the great work. It begins quietly, so quietly you almost miss it. A shift, like the moment before dawn when the darkness holds its breath. The air changes, though nothing stirs, and then you feel it. A veil, thin yet impenetrable, loosening its grip around you. It has been there for as long as you can remember, so woven into your perception that you mistook it for the world itself. This veil was never made of fabric or shadow. It was made of belief. The belief that you were separate, from others, from the divine, from your own soul. It colored every thought, every choice, every dream you dared to hold. It taught you to live as if you were an island, surrounded by an ocean you could never cross. But now, as the threads begin to unravel, you see that the ocean was always within you. The first tear in the veil reveals something startling. You are not adrift in the universe. You are the universe. The same light that burns in distant stars hums in your veins. The same patterns that shape galaxies are etched into the architecture of your being. You are not a fragment of creation. You are creation, aware of itself. And with that knowing, the illusions begin to fall away. The idea that you are not enough collapses under the weight of its own falsehood. The fear that you are unworthy disintegrates like mist in sunlight. All the stories that told you your value was conditional are reduced to dust, scattered by the wind. In their absence, there is space, vast, clear, infinite. You step into that space and feel something you have not felt in years, perhaps lifetimes: sovereignty. Not the brittle kind built on dominance or control, but the quiet, immovable kind that needs no proof. You no longer measure yourself against the shifting tides of the world. You no longer wait for permission to exist fully. You are aligned with your own essence, and that alignment is freedom. The veil, now almost gone, clings in a few last places: old habits, old fears. You brush them away gently, not with anger, but with recognition. They were never enemies. They were simply the limits of an old vision. And as they dissolve, the light within you expands without boundary, merging seamlessly with the light beyond you. There is no longer a line between inside and outside. You understand now that everything you have ever sought, love, abundance, peace, was never out of reach. It lived here, in the center of your being, waiting for you to remove the walls you didn't know you had built. And as you stand in this open expanse, you realize that nothing can be taken from you because nothing was ever outside you to begin with. The veil is gone. The horizon is limitless. And for the first time, you see not just the path ahead, but the truth of the one who walks it. The air feels sharper now, not cold, but clear, as if every breath carries truth unfiltered. You sense the approach of something final, not as an ending, but as a culmination. For too long, you have carried a companion who has spoken in your voice, yet was never truly you. The ego, faithful in its own way, always ready to defend, to prove, to protect, now stands before you like a mask you once needed, but no longer fit. You look at it, and it looks back. There is no malice in it, no enemy to be destroyed. The ego was a tool, a set of armor that let you walk through battles you could not yet face bare-skinned. But armor is heavy, and it was never meant to be worn forever. You feel the weight of it now. Every role you played to be accepted, every story you told yourself to feel safe, every defense you raised against wounds long healed, and so, with a breath that feels like both surrender and release, you begin to let it go. The edges of the mask blur, as if made of mist, dissolving in the light that radiates from your core. The need to be right, to be admired, to be seen as perfect, all of it falls away like old skin. You are left not with emptiness, but with something infinitely vaster, yourself. In this unmasking, you meet your higher self, not as a concept, but as a presence so familiar, it feels like coming home. It has always been here, quietly guiding from beneath the noise, patient as the tide. Now, with nothing between you, its voice is your voice, its vision your vision. You realize there has never been separation, only layers that obscured the truth. The merging is not dramatic, it is inevitable. Like two rivers meeting, the current simply becomes one. In this unity, there is no striving. You are no longer chasing the light. You are the light. You are no longer searching for meaning. You are the one from whom meaning flows. The endless reaching that defined so much of your journey comes to rest in a single truth. You are whole. The fear of loss, the ache of incompleteness, the constant hum of proving yourself, they are gone. Not because you fought them, but because you no longer feed them. In their place is a stillness so profound, it feels like infinity itself. You see the world now not as a battlefield, but as a vast expanse where every step you take is an act of creation. And in that stillness, you understand there is nothing left to become. There is only the fullness of being, unfolding moment by moment, like light spilling across an endless horizon. It is not a sunrise you witness, but something quieter, less a burst of light, more a steady illumination that seeps into every shadow. There is no announcement, no sudden shift, and yet you know. The journey you began in uncertainty has come full circle. You have walked through the darkness, not around it, and emerged carrying its wisdom like a jewel hidden in your palm. You remember the edge of the abyss, the trembling breath, the hesitation before the first step. You remember the silence that at first felt like abandonment, then became a sanctuary where the voice of your soul could speak. You remember the moment you touched your own worth, not as a fragile hope, but as an unshakable truth. You remember the healing, the alchemy, the unveiling. And now you stand here, not as the seeker you once were, but as the one who is found. But this finding is not the end. You see now that endings and beginnings are not separate. They are two faces of the same turning wheel. What has completed itself within you is not a closing door, but a clearing, a space from which the next horizon can rise. The path ahead is unknown, but you do not fear it. You carry the tools you need, the light you discovered in the night, the voice that speaks from the center of your being, the power to turn even the heaviest shadow into gold. You realize, too, that the journey was never about reaching a single destination. It was about becoming the one who can walk anywhere, into the dark, into the light, into the unmarked lands between, without losing themselves. You have learned that wholeness is not something to be attained, but something to be remembered again and again. The air feels open here, the horizon stretching without boundary. You understand that the light within you is not yours to keep hidden. It moves outward, through your words, your choices, your presence. It touches others, often without you knowing, awakening in them the same remembrance you now carry. And in this way, the circle you have completed becomes a spiral, ever widening, ever rising. There is no final proclamation, no chorus to mark this moment. Only a deep, abiding peace that settles into your bones. You are home, not in a place, but in yourself. The search is over, and yet the adventure has only begun. You take a step forward, not because you must, but because the path itself has become a part of you. And as you walk, the world seems to shift around you, each shadow softer, each light steadier. You know now that there is no place you cannot go, for you carry your own dawn wherever you are. It comes to you not as a memory and not as a thought, but as a presence, immense, silent, ancient. It is older than the mountains, older than the first sunrise, older even than the idea of time. When it speaks, there are no words at first, only a resonance, a deep vibration that seems to move through the marrow of existence itself. And then you realize, this is your own voice, not the one shaped by years and language, but the one that has been speaking since before you had a name. In this place beyond clocks and calendars, there is no urgency, no deadlines. The soul is not in a hurry. It has walked through lifetimes, gathered the dust of countless worlds, and it knows the truth. Nothing real can be rushed, and nothing true can be lost. Every step you have taken, even the ones you thought were mistakes, has been a step toward this moment. The voice within you speaks in images more than words. You see a river flowing without beginning or end, winding through valleys you've never walked, touching lands you've never seen. You see a seed falling into the dark earth, disappearing for a time, only to break through the soil when the season is right. You see your own life mirrored in these cycles, the descents and ascents, the stillness and the movement, the times when nothing seemed to grow, and the times when everything bloomed at once. And you understand, the soul's journey is not linear. It is a spiral, each turn carrying you higher while returning you to the same truths with deeper understanding. You have been here before, in some form, and you will be here again. The details change, the landscapes shift, but the essence, the lessons, the awakening remains eternal. The voice does not promise you a life without storms. It does not shield you from the mystery of what comes next. Instead, it gives you something far greater, the knowing that you are the storm and the calm that follows, the question and the answer, the path and the traveler. You are not moving through time. Time is moving through you. As you absorb this, the boundaries of your identity soften. You are no longer confined to the body that breathes here and now. You feel yourself stretching across centuries, across worlds, across the vast fabric of being. You are a single note in a song too vast to be heard all at once, and yet, without your note, the song would be incomplete. There is no fear here, no sense of scarcity, only the vast, gentle expanse of existence holding you the way the sky holds the stars. You understand now why the voice has no urgency, because in the eyes of eternity, you have already arrived. You always will. It begins as a sensation, subtle, almost imperceptible, like the faint pull of a tide beneath still waters. You feel it in your fingertips, in the quiet between heartbeats. A thread, thin as breath, connects you to something beyond sight, and then another, and another, until you realize that you are part of a vast and intricate weaving, a tapestry so immense it spans not only the world, but every world. In this vision, you are both the thread and the whole cloth. Every life, every soul, every fleeting moment is woven into the same fabric, bound by patterns that no single eye can fully see. What you once perceived as separation was only the illusion of distance. The truth is that there has never been a single step you have taken alone. You feel the presence of others in this weave, not just the people who share your days, but those who have touched your path for a heartbeat or for centuries. Some are familiar, others are strangers, whose lives you have unknowingly brushed against. Yet here, in this great fabric, there is no familiar and stranger, only connection. Their joys ripple through you as your own. Their pain is a shadow you recognize without needing to name. Even the moments you thought were yours alone, your grief, your triumphs, your silent prayers, were threads intersecting with countless others. The victories of one strand strengthen the whole. The wounds of another are carried by the many. This is why no act of love is ever wasted, and no act of cruelty is without echo. Everything you send outward travels through the weave and returns, transformed to its source. The more you see, the more the boundaries dissolve, not just between you and others, but between you and the earth, the sky, the distant stars. You realize you are not standing under the night sky. You are part of it. Your breath is shared with the trees. Your heartbeat is timed with the ocean's rhythm. Your light is made of the same ancient fire that burns in every star. The great weaving is not static. It shifts, expands, and reshapes itself with every choice, every thought, every moment of awareness. And you are not a passive thread in it. You are a weaver. With each intention you set, each kindness you give, each truth you speak, you send color and pattern rippling through the fabric. In this understanding, there is both power and humility. You are vast, but you are not alone. You are eternal, but you are part of something greater than eternity. And as you stand in this knowing, the weave around you glows faintly, as though recognizing that you remember it now. The vision of the great weaving does not fade, it deepens. You begin to see how every strand responds to your presence, how the pattern shifts with each choice you make. You realize you are not a spectator in this vast design. You are a participant, a co-author, a living brushstroke in the masterpiece of existence. It is here that the truth becomes undeniable. Reality is not something that happens to you. It is something that rises with you, shaped by your intention, sculpted by your attention. Every thought you hold, every word you speak, every action you take sends ripples through the fabric, altering its colors, its patterns, its direction. And though you cannot control the entire weave, you can choose the threads you place within it. This choice is not about forcing the world to bend to your will. It is about aligning your will with the deeper currents that have been flowing since before you were born. When your actions are born from love rather than fear, from truth rather than pretense, the fabric responds in kind. Paths open where there were only walls. Light spills in where darkness seemed absolute. You begin to understand that your desires are not random. They are invitations from the universe itself, calling you toward the version of yourself that already exists within the great design. To follow them with clarity is not selfish. It is an act of harmony. When you create from your truest self, you do not take from the whole. You enrich it. You see now how often you have created unconsciously, letting fear and doubt thread themselves into your days. Those strands still exist in the tapestry, but they do not define it. You can weave anew at any moment, choosing colors of courage, compassion, and vision. Creation is not a single act. It is a rhythm, a continuous unfolding. And with this realization comes a quiet responsibility. You can no longer pretend that your thoughts and actions are isolated. You know their echoes will travel farther than you can see, touching lives you will never meet, influencing moments you will never witness. The weave remembers everything, and so you choose more carefully now, not out of fear of consequence, but out of reverence for the beauty you are helping to shape. The world is no longer something outside you. It is an extension of you, just as you are an extension of it. Every sunrise you witness, every face you meet, every silence you sit with is part of the same living artwork. And as you move through it, you feel the pulse of creation in your own heartbeat, steady and eternal. You are not just here to witness the story unfold, you are here to write it. After the weaving, after the colors and patterns, there comes a stillness, not the stillness of absence, but of fullness. It is the pause between heartbeats, the breath the universe takes before speaking the next word. You enter it without effort, as though the path into this quiet has always been open, waiting for you to notice. Here, The noise of the world fades like a distant shore disappearing behind fog. No voices pull at you. No demands press against you. Even the thoughts that once tumbled endlessly in your mind grow slow, like leaves drifting on still water. In their place, you begin to feel something deeper, an undercurrent that has always been here, carrying the raw essence of creation itself. The silence does not ask you to abandon life. It does not demand retreat from the world. Instead, it invites you to meet the world from a place that is unshaken, unbroken. From here, every choice you make is less a reaction and more an act of deliberate creation. You are no longer scattered by external currents. You are the source from which they flow. In this space, time feels irrelevant. Moments stretch and dissolve. You could remain here for what feels like hours or seconds, and it would be the same. The boundaries of past and future blur, leaving only the present, not as a narrow point between what was and what will be, but as an infinite expanse where all possibilities live. It is in this silence that ideas are born, not as hurried sparks, but as steady flames. The visions that rise here are not tangled in fear or ego. They come pure, whole, carrying the unmistakable weight of truth. You begin to see why so many spend lifetimes seeking this place. It is the well from which both wisdom and creation are drawn. The more you rest in it, the more you feel your own edges soften. The you that must be defended, justified, proven, begins to dissolve into something larger, something that includes all things. You are not separate from the stillness. You are the stillness. And in this recognition, you understand that even when you return to movement, this quiet will not leave you. It will walk with you, a constant horizon in the background of your days. When you emerge, the world will not have changed, but your way of being in it will. And that, in time, will change everything. You emerge from the silence as one rises from deep water, slowly, without rush, each breath expanding into something wider than your chest. The world greets you as it always has, the wind on your skin, the murmur of unseen leaves, the faint hum of distant life. Yet nothing is the same. The light falls differently now, as if it recognizes you. Or perhaps it is you who finally sees it. The path beneath your feet is not the one you left. It has not been remade. It has been revealed. The same stones, the same bends and shadows, yet now each step feels deliberate, chosen. You are not moving to escape the darkness anymore. You are carrying its wisdom with you, letting it anchor your stride. Faces appear along the way, some familiar, some strangers. You meet them without the old hunger for approval or the quiet shield of defense. You meet them as you are, unmasked, unarmored, whole. In your presence, they seem to soften, not because you ask them to, but because your stillness invites them to remember their own. You begin to understand that the greatest gift you can offer the world is not to fix it, but to walk through it fully alive. The sky ahead begins to pale, the black of night folding into the first fragile hues of morning. There is no grand explosion of light, only a steady unveiling, the way truth reveals itself to those who are patient. And as the first edge of the sun breaks the horizon, you realize this is not the end of your journey. This is the beginning of all the journeys to come. You carry with you the voice that once whispered in the dark, the light that healed your wounds, the alchemy that turned fear into gold, the knowing that you are both the thread and the weaver. You are no longer seeking yourself. You are living as yourself. And in that living, the world bends and blooms in ways you could never have forced, only allowed. The dawn spreads and the shadows retreat, not vanquished, but resting, knowing they too are part of the whole. You walk on, not toward the light, but with it, knowing that no matter where the path twists, the horizon will always rise to meet your steps, and somewhere, in the quiet places between your heartbeats, you hear it again. The voice beyond time, speaking without words. Welcome home.